Hi beautiful people. Today I am retracting my former video on Mrs. Midwest and asking you all to be more cautious and aware when viewing her content. And heads up, I'm giving you a trigger warning off the top. This is going to be a difficult video. But before I begin, a few announcements. First, tomorrow is election day. Please pop over to the God is Grey podcast to hear a conversation between myself and Scott Stenholm, an Emmy-nominated producer and writer who's covered politics for over a decade, working with the likes of Larry King, Meghan McCain, Ron Paul, and Bill Maher. This is a very insightful conversation with someone in the political atmosphere who has friends and intimate relationships with people on both sides of the aisle. And our talk may just change your vote. Check the link below to listen and rate the God is Grey podcast. And for anyone who loves and wants to support this channel, I'm promoting two things that I know you will love. First of all, my memoir, On Her Knees, is available for pre-sale. This book is a journey of my saving sex for marriage, getting a divorce, and then tumbling down the rabbit hole of sexual exploration. You can follow the On Her Knees Instagram for previews and updates. And of course, Thinx underwear. I love Thinx because they keep me fresh, dry, and clean during my period. Thinx makes for such an elevated period experience, and you can click the link below for my offer code. Now, many of you know, 80,000 of you actually, that I made a positive video on Mrs. Midwest almost exactly 1 year ago. In this video, I defended Caitlyn's content as less potentially harmful than Girl Defines because I didn't see her speaking out on controversial topics like politics, trans rights, or the morality of being LGBTQ. I assumed she believed some toxic theology, but I wasn't seeing it reflected in her social media. And though she gave advice on homemaking and femininity, she reiterated over and over again this sort of live and let live philosophy. I noticed her qualifying her ideas as her own and claiming to respect other people's life choices, which frankly is more than you can say about a lot of fundamentalist Christians and evangelicals. Though on the negative side, I did point out that believing gender roles are a call from God is toxic theology, and that justifications for this theology are inspired by bad pseudoscience and bad biblical interpretation. However, more and more of you have slid into my DMs asking me to comment on whether or not I believe Mrs. Midwest is a secret white. And I felt compelled to look into this, considering I said her content wasn't harmful to over 80,000 people. And before we begin, let me clarify, I myself am not making any accusations of Caitlyn. I'm simply going to explain why people are beginning to ask if this seemingly sweet content creator is aligned with dangerous beliefs. So I began researching Mrs. Midwest, which led me to Yogi Yoabs and Roosh V, which led me to explanations of MGTOW, Tradwives, and Trad Thoughts, and to articles on the compelling argument that alt-right wives with glossy Instagrams and a powerful social media presence can be effective recruiters of white. And if you watch Caitlyn's content, you may think any of these allegations are a stretch. But the reason people make this leap of an accusation is because of the content that Caitlyn herself reposts, advertises, and promotes, which is exactly why, without even trying, a cursory Google search of Mrs. Midwest led me to an website. First, I found more questionable or vague examples, like Caitlyn has followed, quote, European pride accounts, most of which have since been removed or banned, featuring very blonde and white people where her like could be seen next to the like of a Nazi. The only account Mrs. Midwest follows which hasn't been banned keeps their language vague, but the account has followers who comment with SS and warn about the, quote, replacement of whites and the, quote, culture war on white people from Black people and progressives in general. The most disturbing account Caitlyn followed was at Embracing Womanhood _, which posted, quote, my ancestors did not race mix, and I will not race mix either. Which, first of all, has anyone done their 23andMe? Yes, your ancestors did, quote, race mix Belle Christine and Feminine Lavender, whose accounts are now deleted. Surprise, surprise. Prior to this, I thought the most toxic account that Caitlyn followed was the transformed wife. But after this, I'm like, I stand corrected. Which, by the way, yes, reposting Laurie Alexander is a huge problem on its own. When I first made my video in support of Mrs. Midwest, I wasn't aware she supported the transformed wife, who you can learn about in another one of my videos. Laurie promotes deeply misogynistic ideas, like her belief that a wife cannot be maritally.
True is when you're assaulted against your will by some stranger.
I could stop here. I could say because of Caitlyn's follows, we should be wary of her content. But Caitlyn's follows do get worse. There is a 2019 interview between Caitlyn and Yogi Oabs, an open misogynist who posts gems like this on Twitter. All women are natural manipulators. Since they're not leaders and pioneers, they must resort to other methods to get their way. What comes out of their mouth is always a means of control. Or even worse, and major trigger warning here, any woman that thinks is 100% a man's fault is going to deliberately behave in ways that invite sexual attention. That's the problem. No, you cannot and should not wear and do whatever you want. You should be, all caps, responsible. So this is someone Caitlyn wanted to align with in an interview, and not to challenge his ideals, but because they're seemingly on the same page. Here they discuss femininity, what makes men and women attractive, but also laced in the content are a few key lines that call Caitlyn's overall beliefs into question. For one, Mrs. Midwest shares her philosophy on how to infuse more outlandish statements or ideas in seemingly innocent content, like skincare or housekeeping.
Because my message can be kind of like intense for some people, like the things I believe, I like to pad it with skincare and like how I clean my house, you know?
This statement doesn't necessarily mean that what she is weaving in is dangerous or toxic. We could assume she's talking about traditional gender roles and Christianity. But there is a bit later where she and Yogi Oabs theorize that the predisposition to clean and interior decorate is genetic.
And I feel like that's what most modern women are. They're these uncontrolled kids with a lot of energy, and they're not channeling it into something. A lot of these young modern girls who aren't trying to be feminine anymore. Their places are really dirty. And I truly wonder if there's a genetic component, not just genetic, but a natural component to cleaning.
I have nothing to lose. I don't work. I can say what I want. And I do think that cleaning and nesting is more feminine. And I do think that it's genetic.
And this information, of course, is being pulled from thin air and has no scientific basis whatsoever. But Caitlyn also winds up giving us details on who she follows online and whose philosophies she finds inspiring, which is where things get even more wild.
A year ago, I wanted to lose about like 10 pounds, like just a little bit of that extra fluff. And so I started looking online for like hardcore motivation, like you don't look good, like lose the weight. And that's how I discovered Return of Kings. I started
That's
reading
hilarious.
those blog posts that were like women who gained all this weight and it destroyed their looks. And I was like kind of shocked because the society tells you like, oh, if you have like pretty face, if you have curves, like you're good looking, end of story. But on Return of Kings, I kind of learned, no, there's like this higher standard that you have to reach to actually be attractive.
Now I'm gonna let CC Marie, who did so beautifully, go give her a follow, sum up what these men Caitlyn claims to admire actually believe in.
So perhaps one of the most damning pieces of evidence regarding Caitlyn's alleged white supremacist leanings is from her blog. It's a post from July of 2019 titled 20 Things I Recommend. One of the 20 things she recommends is YouTube history lessons by Stephen Molyneux, who is a known and very shameless white supremacist. She just tosses that in there with like a cookie recipe and a brand of laundry detergent she likes, literally. She says, I'm a big fan of this man and his philosophy. It's brash, offensive, and my favorite type of YouTube content. I love his presentations in particular because they combine culture, history, and philosophy into one amazing learning lesson. Stephen Molyneux's YouTube account was actually banned and deleted for promoting hate speech. It was deleted by YouTube in one fell swoop, along with David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the Klan, and Richard Spencer, known neo-Nazi and white supremacist.
This is a problem. Mrs. Midwest has been transparent about enjoying the philosophies of openly racist, sexist, and transphobic people. And to show you how insidious this content can be, Caitlyn herself explains how looking for weight loss tips led her to becoming a red pillar.
Like, how do people discover the red pill or whatever? It's especially a woman. It's kind of surprising when you meet a woman who, you know, is curious about it or open to it. I started diving into like traditional womanhood online, and like I wanted to read blogs from women like me, and like I was interested in that perspective. So anyways, I started reading those articles, and then it kind of jumped into, oh, there's a subreddit and there's all these YouTubers and all that stuff.
For anyone who doesn't know, becoming red-pilled is a reference from The Matrix, when Morpheus offers Neo a blue pill or a red pill. If Neo takes the blue pill, he remains ignorant. If Neo takes the red pill, the reality of the Matrix will be revealed. The term red pill has been co-opted by the alt-right, and I found a great description of this in New York Magazine, which reads, quote, "To men's rights activists, being red-pilled means throwing off the yoke of popular feminism and recognizing that men, not women, are the oppressed group. To the alt-right, it means revealing the lies behind multiculturalism and globalism and realizing the truth of isolationist nationalism." Now down this Mrs. Midwest rabbit hole, it's bad and it's about to get even worse. On her quest for weight loss, she promotes Roosh V's content. Let me show you what that content looks like. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, Roosh has repeatedly advocated for predatory and forceful sexual behavior in his books. On his Roosh V blog and on his popular manosphere platform, Return of Kings, he pushes the idea that women are intellectually inferior to men, worth only the sexual pleasure and fertility they can provide, and should be prevented from voting. He calls this set of hateful beliefs neo-masculinity. Wikipedia says his advice, his videos, and his writings have received widespread criticism, including accusations of misogyny, promotion of anti-Semitism, and having ties to the. It's worth noting that all of his books have been banned from Amazon, and the website Mrs. Midwest refers to, Return of Kings, features articles like this: 35 pretty girls who became fat and ugly. Traditional gender roles create feminine women, which says, quote, "You won't be feminine if you have no shame for being an overweight, tatted up slut." Social welfare creates a society of sluts, which argues against welfare, saying women aren't compliant to men when they have too many resources. Women must have their behavior and decisions controlled by men, which reminisces over more blatantly misogynistic times when, quote, "The reason that women had their behavior limited was for the simple reason that they are significantly less rational than men, in a way that impaired their ability to make good decisions concerning the future." So sweet. The Three Purposes of Women makes blatantly homophobic and transphobic remarks, and here's an article where he calls a black woman, quote, "objectively attractive for her race." One of Roosh V's most deplorable articles suggests we make legal on private property, to which he's since added an addendum to proclaim the writing as satire. But one, if it's meant to be satire, it's really not funny. And furthermore, noting the entire body of his work, it's hard to believe he's joking. So I know that was a lot of rotten, wretched food for thought. I don't want to leave us all here feeling hopeless. Mrs. Midwest describes in this next clip something that I deeply relate to, and that is sharing a love and empathy for brokenhearted people.
And I also was very curious about, you know, the hurting hearts of a lot of like MGTOW people. And I was so curious, like reading about and hearing just their horrible stories about women and kind of comparing that to real life and seeing, yeah, I've seen women do that. And so that's kind of just how I got involved with everything and found your channel and all of that.
I myself love men. I want to see them uplifted and mentally and emotionally healthy. And for those of us who wonder how seemingly kind, empathetic people can be radicalized to the or any other troubling group in society, this opinion piece in the New York Times sums up beautifully how and why vulnerable people can be radicalized. Quote, "The alt-right is abhorrent. It is racist and hate-filled, but it is, like any other mass movement, also driven by a sense of dissatisfaction with modern life. A frustrated yearning for a mythic past of material abundance is not gender-specific. Young people face ever more obstacles, higher demands, and continually dwindling returns in the form of work benefits, job security, and pay. We shouldn't underestimate how some young white women, when faced with this bleak economic landscape, may look back to 1960s feminism as having cheated them out of a family and a luxurious lifestyle, all supported by a single income. The men on the alt-right might point to diversity initiatives and mass immigration as having dismantled their career prospects. The women are furious that they have to consider career prospects at all. But the existence of Tradwives points to a more nuanced reality. Female fears of objectification and sexual violence remain as potent as ever. The Tradwife subculture exploits them and then offers chastity, marriage, and motherhood as an escape. But modesty has never been a safeguard against degradation and we know that is no less likely to hurt a woman simply because he's married to her, but it's not difficult to see how it could be a seductive lie. So in conclusion, I felt it was important to retract my prior video on Mrs. Midwest. Noting the research I've done, I can no longer count her content as harmless. To the contrary, it made me wonder if she's stepping into some very dangerous ideologies, and I want you all to be aware of that. Please discuss in the comments, let me know what you thought about this video, which I brought to you with a heavy heart. Once more, I'll reiterate that I'm not making any accusations of Caitlyn/Mrs. Midwest. If she doesn't realize who she's truly following and the depth of the darkness of that content, then I hope this video will make her aware. And Mrs. Midwest, you have a platform, you can speak to this. Ugh, that was heavy. And again, get out and vote. Listen to my podcast with my friend Scott, and that's it. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends, donate to my Patreon or Venmo if you can. I love you all so much. God bless.